Do you know John and Celia Woodland? John grew up on a prosperous Quaker plantation in Virginia. As a young man, he heard the call of the West and moved to Kentucky. There he married and had 2 daughters, but sadly they died of illness. Then he met Celia, daughter of the local ferry owner, as she was collecting berries by the river one day. They married and had 9 children by the time they joined the church, and eventually had 14. John was of mystical bent. He sought to create utopian communities, and this quest for Zion must have contributed to his interest in the gospel. The Woodlands moved to a beautiful property in Missouri, which John had seen in a dream. Unfortunately, there they were persecuted by mobs and driven from their home. This was a horrific time for their family. 2 of their children had measles and died from the resulting exposure. Then their teenage son James was killed by the mob as he tried to get a wagon to leave. Celia was pregnant and gave birth only 5 days after the mob burned down their house, and then her mother died 5 days after that. The trauma was heavy, yet the Woodland family pioneered west and settled in Utah. At the age of 94, John was carried away in a trance into the spirit world. He saw the beauties of heaven and a crown that awaited him, and was escorted by a guide to a beautiful gate where a man was seated, and found his name in examining the records. He saw many friends, including Joseph Smith. After several hours, his spirit returned to his body, and he bore testimony to his family of the truth of the gospel and divinity of the calling of Joseph Smith. John's sons, who had frantically ridden all night upon the news of their father's passing, were surprised and vexed to find that their supposedly dead father was up and eating breakfast, and John was annoyed that they had left their work to check on him. He lived 4 more months after this experience. Their grandson recalled, "In her last days, my grandmother seemed to live back over those terrible days of Missouri and Illinois, and at times fancied the mob was again at her door. But then the fear would leave, and that beautiful face would brighten, and she thanked God for deliverance." And now you know visionary pioneer John and his long-suffering wife, Celia Woodland.